And we are live. You see how that works?
Technology,
Hello,
a miracle.
I know, honestly, it still feels like one every time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Lovely to see you, Linda. Good of you to chase along the changing time windows. We're here at a very special time today on our Sunday live stream. I'm delighted to welcome none other than Paul Chiddicks. And I have to tell you a little secret, Paul. In my little head, I'm always thinking of you as Sir Paul. So you are to
Sir
me,
Paul.
Sir Paul.
Nobody's ever called me Sir Paul. Call me a few other names, but not Sir Paul.
Okay, everybody, we all now get to call him Sir Paul.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a delight to be here.
It's a delight to have you as well. Welcome, Mark, Brana, Jim, of course, and our very beloved Linda Tether. All of you, Lisa McGuire, thank you so much for joining us today. This, as I said, is a very special time for a very special guest. Because Paul Chiddicks, I met you on, was it still called Twitter back then? I think it might
It was
very
Twitter,
well
yeah.
still have been. And then blah, blah, blah things happened. It changed names. Many of us started looking for another home, and many of us went out in the wandering across the open online world
We were
until we
like
found.
genealogy nomads with no home for a while.
We were. You know, there's a word for that in Japan when you had a samurai who did not have a home, did not have a master. It's called a ronin. We were ronin looking for
We were,
a platform.
absolutely.
In any case, we finally found our way to Blue Sky. And what to me was really interesting about that genealogy community on Twitter and eventually on Blue Sky was that it was distinctly British, frankly. And it was very different from a very heavy American sort of crowd that I had seen on Facebook of the genealogy folks on Facebook. And a lot of things have shifted and changed. And I've talked about that. You've talked about that. It's been an interesting world that's developed. And then, as so many of us have now migrated over to Substack, even as many continue with WordPress and other sites, as you know, I've gone out of my way, and I appreciate the warm welcome and support from everybody else of building sky
I
bridges
like to
across
think it's,
platforms.
I always refer to it, everything's set in jelly. It's always transitional, always moving.
Especially when
But
heat
this,
is applied.
but Substack seems to be the place to be for me.
For now.
I know there's not many English or British genealogy contributors, but it certainly seems to be the place for anyone that's doing any writing, obviously. But if you've got stories to tell, which many of us have, this does seem to be the perfect platform. It offers so many different areas to progress, whether you're doing a podcast, live streaming, or just basic writing. It encompasses all, whereas I don't think any other platform currently offers all of those features. I've dabbled in Instagram and dabbled in one or two others, but none of them offer the complete package, for want of a better description, really.
So, as you know, my background was in technology, and I have to sort of resist the temptation to go into tech explanations of things. I think here what's been so delightful has been the thoughtful pathways to finding platforms as communities, whatever it might be. And then looking at the feature functionality of the community, or rather of the platform, and how that serves the community. And I think for me, anyway, one of the most important things that was here already after I'd already formed the community, when I discovered Substack, first I discovered I already had a Substack account because I'd been subscribing to other people, but was the stated notion that if you want to leave, you can leave. And you take your content with you, you take your subscribers with you. So set in jelly, I think they're all set in jelly, but this platform is set in jelly and knows it's set in jelly. And all of us have work to do, let's be clear, and I talk about that over at Mission Genealogy, to make sure that we are prepared to go if we need to. And many did, many have. And that's okay.
When you think about what we do as researchers and family historians. It's all about connections, but it's not just connections to the past. It's connections today to people with similar ideas, similar thoughts, similar journeys, similar stories.
Yeah.
And it's by sharing those stories, and this platform allows you to do all of that.
Yeah.
For me, the core value of anything that we do is connections.
That's
Connections.
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So it's not about the platform.
No, no,
It is about the connections
connections.
and self-conscious, a thoughtful notion of where and why and how you're making those connections and where you're going, which is where, thinking about a tech role of different kinds of features like AI or audio or video or whatever. If you break it down and think about what you're doing with that connection, and Lisa McGuire just chimes in here to say, I have learned so much from people in this community.
Yes. Yeah.
It's making a connection that you and I are similar in this way, and we share this past experience or
We
cousins.
learn by sharing of information, sharing
Yeah,
of stories, sharing of technology, of usage, and it's all those little connections
yeah.
that kind of bring everything together.
Y-
It's yeah,
One of the things that has amazed me, and this is specific, I think, to the notion of family history, is I personally came to family history and stayed because of the ways in which family history connects me to history of place, history of country, history of peoples, history of the planet. And through family history, it's personal. Understand where my people were 250 years ago, or where some my friends' people were. Now I care. Now I care and I'm learning more. Jill Swenson just joined, for example, and has a brand new book out about the indigenous peoples in the American Midwest and land and the experience in that. Um, the mixing of peoples at a period of of historic time. Actually, I wouldn't just say American and Canadian. And now I care about what's happening there in an area I knew very little about.
it's when you make that step from collecting the names and the dates and filling that tree out in the early years, and we all have to go through that. Don't get me wrong, that is the foundations. That's where you start from. But it's then when you place individuals or family groups in historical context, social context, global context, what was going on at the time, the migration, what the government were doing, that all would have affected your family members wherever they were in the world. It doesn't matter where they were. They would have all been affected by their surroundings, the environment that they lived in. And it's when you go from that, just a genealogical tree, to then place your ancestors at that moment in time, whether it's Victorian, Edwardian, or they're globetrotters, they've gone to Australia, New Zealand, America. It's when you make that step is when you go from just what I would call a genealogist to a family historian, then, because you're then telling stories and you're then bringing social history into family history. That's
Yeah.
a big step.
Yeah, yeah. It's as you're describing that, uh I'm thinking of deciduous trees. I grew up largely in the tropics where trees sometimes lose their leaves and they come right back and there's nothing to do with seasons. Living on the mainland now for over 50 years, I get the gist of what happens seasonally. But as you build your family tree, it's like a tree in wintertime. You've built out all of the scaffolding, the structure, and the strength of the strength of the trunk and the kind of tree and what's going to have it grow. But it's when it leaves out and builds you learn about the nature of the leaves
Absolutely.
and how all
Yeah,
of those things.
your foundations are your roots. They have to be solid. That's where you
Right,
build your base, and then
right.
it's how you watch it grow. And it could grow in different directions, and there's no rules to that. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. You can go off on different tangents. Um,
I have to insert here as a gardener. growing trees is very messy and
Very difficult.
complicated.
Yeah,
Well, you can, it's not difficult if it just is in the perfect space at the perfect time and just grows away. But even there, branches fall off, people get hurt, lots of bad things happen. But, sometimes a good metaphor is just there to
yeah.
then
It's too,
talk about
too easy. It's a gift.
it's a gift. So I'm just coming back from an hello, Kyla. I see you there. Kyla and I are just waking up
Oh,
having
you've been on
flown
that
home.
show, yeah.
Yes, we were roommates together. Once again, we'd never met. Known her, my bestie, for 2 years now, never met in person. And there we were, a dynamic duo running around the conference at the relatively small town of Fort Wayne, Indiana. But anybody in the American family history space knows that Fort Wayne, Indiana is not ordinary. There is an extraordinary confluence of factors and, frankly, the right person at the right place at the right time that resulted in this extraordinary gem of a library at the Allen County Public Library. And it's really funny to see 1,000 people in a conference center across the street from the library. As soon as the bell goes off and the 5 o'clock program is
Like
over, we
school's
all make
out.
a beeline to the library. The library was open till 10. We were closing down the library every night. Yeah, it was really quite something. But it's also quite an extraordinary library dedicated to the proposition of family history and why we're doing what we do. I'm also, if I may insert, kind of proud of what we're building here. And it was really such an honor to be talking about the power of storytelling with an audience. Oh, wait, that's it. It's storytelling with an
And with an
audience,
audience.
because that's always hard with family history, right?
Absolutely,
Um, and that's a little bit, we were there as a ride along, kind of like the ride alongs we were doing at Roots Tech. But the ride along in that Genealogical, which has been around for 18 years, well before I knew how to spell genealogy, which took me a minute, um, was along with me and represented, ably represented by my partner in crime, Kyla Byung. We were there together to represent different aspects of this kind of storytelling. Genea Bloggers has been around since kind of the dawn of blogging as a technology platform, which is really kind of an afterthought of web development. I get to say that because I was there. Anyway, and all the way through this crazy thing that we're making up here and the ways in which these pieces come together. And I think that's something that all of us get to be very proud of. I got nothing. I got nothing without all of you in building this, and frankly, all of your Substacks contributing to all of this. This is just a coincidence of time to be able to get together and share these things. I see Kristen jumping in, telling us about how genealogy makes history personal,
yes, very much so.
and is in her own journey, telling her own family stories so ably. Which brings me back to a shout out to all of you as such extraordinary writers. When you step back, I saw you, Jim the historian, jumping in with the kinds of stories that we just don't otherwise hear about American history. And that's especially on exhibit under these
There's just
times we're seeing now.
so many wonderful writers out there, and the stories are so, you have to sit back and you're blown away by the quality of the writing, the amazing research as well, and then to put that into a story is absolutely fantastic. I share so many each week on the Chiddicks Observer newsletter, but I probably read 3 times as many as I share, and there's just never enough space to fit everything in. It's the quality of
You
writing
are
is phenomenal.
you are so thoughtful in your Chiddicks Observer of Which is why when we chatted earlier about this, I love the metaphor of a cup of coffee and a little croissant, just a little something to sit and talk. It always feels when I sit down to read your Chiddicks Observer, I feel like I've just bumped into you in a cafe and you're going to tell me a little bit about some of the things that have amazed you over the last few days.
It's just a little stop and a little gap in time. It's just that little moment of peace. It is just like, to me, like you would read an old-fashioned newspaper. Nobody reads newspapers these days. Everything's online and etc. etc. But in the old days, I can remember Granddad sitting down, especially on a Sunday, he'd read the paper from cover to cover. That was Sunday morning taken care of. And this is kind of the vibe and the idea behind it. It was to capture all the some of them are, these are not all genealogy based stories. There's some very personal and deep and meaningful stories. There's obviously some history related ones, but it was just trying to encompass really a little bit of everything. But it's the little bits that connect. I know there's certain people there. I know Rain. I've shared Rain stuff, and Lisa and Jill. Yeah, it's yeah, so many different stories and ways of telling stories.
Yeah.
It's something that it kind of started from nowhere really, and I never really knew at the time where it was going to go, and it kind of evolved, and it's been tweaked a little bit, and but now it's got its own little. I call it like a meandering river, because each
Yeah.
week you never really know the little twists and turns. You never know which way it's going to go,
Yeah.
what direction this week will bring. I try and vary the posts so they're not all of a similar nature. There's some technology ones in there. There's some good Substack advice
Yeah.
for people like me, because we're all still learning. Um, so yeah, it's kind of evolved into. I mean, I can't believe we're up to something like episode 56 or whatever. It's kind of taken its own, taken on board its own entity, its own life, really. It's
Yeah. Well, there's 2 things in that. One is I've had the privilege of watching you discover your path in Substack. And, I come from a startup world where, you sort of they say it's like building an airplane on after you jump off the building. You have to sort of figure it out and move fast
yeah,
and figure out what's working and not working and make adjustments. That's valorized just a little too much in my world, but leave that aside for the moment. I've been able to watch you make those observations and changes from a technical perspective in how you present things, like including links into URLs that are pasted into body copy of a post. But at the same time, then bring the whole you to the story and sit back and have that metaphor of sitting in the cafe with the newspaper and bringing the bring what's in mind and yet still very thoughtful in the ways that things are brought together. So it never was an expectation of presenting everything that was interesting or rose to a certain quality level or certain bar, but instead a meandering mix of what just happened to happen this last time. And that's
yeah.
what's so lovely about it.
Wanted to avoid just a cut and paste job. It would have been so easy just to paste everybody's links into it, and just leave it at that. I wanted to actually. The idea is that I've read every single post, and I've engaged with every writer, and I've got to the core of what they were trying to write about, um, and that's what I then try and transfer into the Observer, with the hope that others will then pick up on new writers and subscribe, and it's a good way of sharing and introducing different people to other people. It's a great way of, as I say, it's kind of taken on its own little entity. Really, it's kind of evolved, and it's
Yeah.
it's established now, because I think people know it's always coming out on a Monday, um, and it's all, they know the format. The format's now sort of
Right.
established,
Right.
so there's no surprises as such.
I'm
Um,
reminded that in this world of AI, where you can have posts automatically written for you. Yeah, you can. You can do all kinds of things. You can make movies automatically without a lot of work. That the things that we actually put our work into have to be meaningful, and it
Yeah,
makes a difference, and it's clear when you've put the work in. So I the flip side to it is that if you're gonna do something that's gonna take work, have it be meaningful, and,
yeah.
things that are unimportant, find a way to see if they can be automated or do they even need to be done,
You
because
have
if
to
it's not
give
meaningful.
to make something worthwhile, even if somebody doesn't particularly like or enjoy what you've written, you have to give a little piece of yourself to the story. You
Oh.
can't, and the bigger the story, the more you have to give. And, the Adelaide story that we'll come to later in the week
Well, let's talk a
is
little bit about that.
that is something that takes well, it took a hell of a lot from me. It actually took but it had to be like that to make it work.
Yeah, yeah. So tell when we've talked about this before, you've talked about how sometimes the story finds you.
Yes, I'd reached that stage in where most of the people I've been researching over 35 years, so the tree's kind of dried up a little bit. There's so many stories within your own tree that you can write about, and you can, yeah, of course, every voice matters. I always quote that, and every story is worth telling. But there comes a point where you've kind of exhausted the really good stories. Um, so I started looking for something different. Again, no plan. First of all, I found a grave of an American pilot in our local town. I thought that's got to be interesting. So I researched all of that and wrote a detailed story, and that kind of went on for months. There was connections. I spoke to relatives in America. I had some of the original drawings of his gravestone sent to me that were drawn up. So that kind of really came out of just stumbling across a grave uh, on a walk in town. So that was one story, and then I wrote about the Titanic, the iconic picture from the Titanic. The day afterwards, the young boy that
Mm.
was pictured outside selling the newspapers that announced that the Titanic had sank. Now I googled and looked online, and there was references to his name, but there was no one I couldn't find anywhere that his story had been told. So that was the first branch away from my own family. Um, and again, that took a lot of time and research and a lot of writing. Um, and then, of course, Adelaide's picture came up, and it does come up quite regularly if you go on any social media site. It's one of those that does the rounds, if you like. And again, there was what I call potted histories. Somebody would put, she was born here, died there, had so many siblings. There was like a paragraph of information. And that's really what piqued my interest. I had absolutely no idea where it was going to lead to when I started digging. Um, Initially, I found a Roots chat conversation where somebody had posted a picture, and then there was a few conversations. That's now gone on to something like 19 pages long now. Um, and people asked who she was, and there was a few little snippets of information. And then a guy called John Curnow said she was his two times great aunt. And John sort of then contacted me because I'd made some references in the chat, and I'd said, I was a family historian researcher. He said, "Would you like to research her story?" He said, "I've got plenty of certificates and information, but I can't write a story." And that's really where it all kind of started. That was the seed um, to what was probably 2 years on and off research and going backwards and forwards and adding to the story and purchasing of books, doing some background checks, and it kind of snowballed from there. But what happened was, because of the connection won't go into too much today, but because of the connection to Jack the Ripper, and if you've read the story, you'll know the connection to the Jack the Ripper story. There's a gentleman over here who has written several books um, on the Jack the Ripper series, and he does various guided tours in London. He got in touch and said, could he interview me? So I said, yeah, why not? So I went down to Ironbridge in Shropshire, and we did an interview down there, which he posted on all his social media, and it went. I say it went viral. It went viral for me anyway, um, and it was really that kind of the whole thing really took off then. Um, People, the comments, and people were coming back. People were sharing, resharing the story. And currently, the last time I looked, it had been viewed over 44,000 times, which is probably the accumulation of everything else I've written times 10. Yeah, so it was kind of it was a set of circumstances that all came together that made it work, but it was the story above all else. It's always about the story. You can share, you can have people boost it and post it, but at the core of everything was Adelaide's story. Um, and again, for everyone, if they've read the story or not, if you wrote a film script or you did a play thing for Netflix, if you were going to film that for Netflix, they'd turn it down because it was too unbelievable. There was just too much in there. Um, and they say that stories come in layers. I've never known a story reveals every way you turned, it just got darker and worse, and it got deeper and deeper. It was it drained me. I didn't do anything for when I'd actually finished it and submitted the very first one. I didn't do anything for about 2 months afterwards because I was physically shot. It was
Yeah.
absolutely. It took quite a lot to do that. Yeah, it was very emotional. Doesn't really cover um, what it felt like. It was draining, emotionally draining. It
Yeah.
was, and
You know,
considering, I should have pointed out right at the very beginning, of course, she's no relation of mine whatsoever. There's no family connection. It was only that
yeah.
John
Yeah.
Curnow, her two times great nephew, got in touch.
Right.
Um,
So many of these stories, I think, we chatted about this a little bit before we got started. One of the things that I did not realize as we began these conversations that, there's a little bit that has to do with the scaffolding of the story itself, the set
yeah,
of facts. But then there's the empathy to understand what else was happening, what the contextual facts were that led to it, the parallel to, or rather coincidental timeline relative to the Industrial Revolution, to the role of Jack the Ripper, to the set piece, what was happening around it that makes something that was a potted history into a deeply something that is pulling on the soul to something that for you to care about that you didn't hear before. And I tend to think that your extraordinary skill set in writing is coming from that ability to listen to the story, to listen to the facts around it, just as you are listening to the stories that you're reading. And then in chatting with you, I discovered that you are also a coach, not just a here's how to hit the ball kind of coach, but rather a team coach. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
yeah, I've always been involved with sport. Throughout my life, I played football. You call it soccer, but we call it football over here. So I played football for from as a young lad, 8, 9, and then you get to the point where you can't play no more. So then I coached. I coached for maybe 15, 20 years, coached junior teams. And then I had a break, because we had a young family, we got married, and work took off. And so you have a break. And then about 4 years ago, I came back into it because I was coming up for retirement, um, and my wife was one of those. She said, "You're not sitting around at home all day."
Not with me.
No, she said, "I'm signing you up for anything and everything, so you're out the house at least 5 days a week." And she said about this walk-in football, which is for people of a certain age group. And I kind of, yeah, I played football. I don't really want to go back to that because I don't think it's going to be my cup of tea. And I got involved, and wow, it's kind of as much as I throw myself into genealogy and Substack and all these other things, football takes up equally as much time. So we have 2 sessions a week. We play over a weekend. We have something like 60 players on a good night turn up. We're split into 3 teams. We have a ladies team, two men's teams, trying to get a younger team going as well. Um, so again, you have to think about the different sessions and plan and all the practice drills. And, it's not just a question of turning up with half a dozen balls in a bag and away you go. In fact, I was sorting the garage out today because the garage is full of kit, bibs, footballs. It's kind of taken over. As much as the Lego's taken over the study, the football stuff has
Oh,
taken over the garage.
the Lego
It's
conversation we'll come back to another time.
but it's no, it's always been a lifelong passion of mine. And again, I'm going back to this is the most enjoyable period of football I've ever had. I absolutely love it. I have to pinch myself that I'm getting a kit bag ready to go and play and train and teach football at my age. It's to come back to something that you love after quite a big gap. I hadn't played for 20 years since I was, say, 40. To come back to it now, it's a real privilege actually. But I do like the because it's a social thing. The football is one aspect, but it's the social side of it. We have social events, we have Christmas dues, we have different things going on, functions going on. We have a drink afterwards, so it's quite a socially active. And the football bit is kind of an aside, really.
But there's something really important that caught my ear when you were describing the football thing. And trust me, I'm not a aficionado of the finer points of your football, but rather what you were telling me about what you do in the coaching process in terms of listening to the individuals that are playing. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, you have to. Everyone's individual. It's I think whether you in a work environment, whether you work in a team or a group, whether you're the team leader or just a part of that team, or whether you're in a soccer dressing room, soccer training pitch, you've got to recognise you can't be too generic with what you say and how you treat people. It's, you have to work out what makes people tick, what motivates people, what interests people, because no two people are ever the same. Everyone's a little bit unique. Some people need a cuddle from the coach. They need an arm around the shoulder. They need to be valued. Need to be told that um, they're appreciated and their talents are worth it. Because some people lack confidence. People come to it for so many different reasons. People come to health reasons, social reasons, um, and you have to take everything from that individual perspective and try and encourage and get the best out of them so that experience for them is the best it can be. And you try and do that as much as you can for as many people as you can. Some people don't really engage too much. They're a little bit shy socially. So he's trying to tease that out of people. And that just comes with time. And that's, I suppose that's a life skill. It's not necessarily a football or coaching skill. It's
Yeah.
something that you learn. Comes with experience. Comes with retirement and being old.
Hey, I'm listening. I'm listening. So this has been such a fabulous opportunity to speak with you and to share what I have heard in our private conversations that I find so motivating. I think all of you could see from those few words how that immediately applies to what we are all doing here in this oddly online social environment of knitting together a shared goals and shared experiences to build a community of listeners and to share that perspective with our own family and friends, to bring them back into it. I'm coming, as I said, right out of this National Genealogical Conference where I was astonished to see that I was surrounded not with people that I needed to convince why storytelling is important, but to recognize all of them as figures that are out in their own communities trying to do the same thing that we are doing, and it was pretty inspiring. So I hope all of you, if you haven't already, pop over to the Projectkin calendar. You'll see our event on Thursday, and I will include the details of the event in the notes with this recording that will be popped up
Is it
onto.
Wednesday or Thursday?
It's Thursday. Oh, wait a minute.
It's Wednesday.
Thank you.
I was panicking then because Thursday's football, you see.
You see, and this is exactly why we've not had Paul on before. We had to make some small adjustments to the calendar, which, as you all know, I don't do easily. But that is indeed on Wednesday, Pacific time. My friends in the other side of the planet in Australia and New Zealand, who are always a day ahead, this will be Thursday to them. So maybe that's my excuse. No, not really. So, also this week we have, for all of our friends that we were meeting at Roots Tech, Kyla and I were meeting at Roots Tech. We have our mission genealogy gatherings, which we started back in 2024, I think, as a way to help each other get comfortable with the mechanics of running Substack. And it's turned into a clubhouse as genealogists to compare notes of what's going on. Everything is on the table and welcome, just as long as everybody is supportive and welcoming. And I've never even had to, that's never even been an issue because of all of who you are. And that'll all happen on Tuesday in 2 different sessions. So it's a privilege to have you on Wednesday. Stay tuned, and we will hear all about Adelaide's story, how we got there, and where this is going. Thank
Thanks
you
for having
again.
me. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you very
so
much.
much. Take care now. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.